Greetings, Hacksters! Today we have a special guest, Zoe Cayetano, who is a technical product manager at Intel. Zoe, hi! How's it going?
Hi. Hi. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. So, I've heard a bit about your job and how you see yourself as empowering developers, and you also see yourself as a bit of an entrepreneur inside of this big hardware company. Could you tell us a little bit more about your role and how you see yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So I am a trained physicist. I graduated with a physics degree, and prior to Intel, I was a data science researcher. So I got to dive deep into data science and AI analytics back in university, and my research focus was all around data science and being able to use it in applied physics.
Huh.
And so fast forward to now, I've been able to apply kind of a lot of different aspects of my life into a product manager role at Intel. So essentially what that means is I get to work with a lot of different types of people, from engineering, software, hardware engineers, to UI, UX designers, so go-to-market developers, and as well as community outreach. So I've been able to dive into a lot of different aspects of the product, and specifically I'm focused on a product called OpenVINO Toolkit that
Oh,
Intel
yeah.
is primarily driving.
So yeah, that's sort of why we're here today, is because we have this contest going on where people can download the OpenVINO toolkit and use it to build their own applications. Of course, this is your specialty. Could you tell us just really briefly what OpenVINO is?
Yeah, definitely. So VINO stands for Visual Inferencing and Neural Network Optimizations.
I did not know that.
Um, or it can stand for wine too. But when we started OpenVINO back in 2018, it used to be a computer vision SDK. Specifically, we specialize in computer vision and deep learning. But since then, especially this year, we've expanded across many different types of workloads too, including audio processing and natural language processing. And what OpenVINO does is it optimizes models. So you could either take a trained model from open source communities that is typically trained on either TensorFlow or PyTorch, and then use OpenVINO to write once and deploy anywhere across Intel architecture. And if you have been following Intel, we have a lot of different architectures, from CPU, integrated graphics within a lot of CPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, and we really want the developer to have that choice of being able to use whether it's a Raspberry Pi plus and a neural compute stick too with the NVIDIA CPU, or whether they're developing on their laptops. We want them to be able to have that choice and flexibility with the kinds of platforms and architectures that they need for their specific use case and for the problem that they're trying to solve, and be able to write their application once and deploy across all of those different platforms without having to rewrite your code or go to such low level programming. So we have a unified engine, a unified inference engine inside OpenVINO 2 that allows you to go
Huh.
across all of those different plugins and architectures.
You have a common API that connects them all, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that common API is built upon what Intel also produced, a library that Intel produced called Mass Kernel Library,
Oh,
MKLDNN, and specifically it's for deep neural networks. And it abstracts, allows developers to abstract all of the low-level programming that you used to need to do prior to OpenVINO. In say, for example, if you are looking to deploy on FPGA because they have very low latency,
mm.
you don't have to go to Verilog or VHDL for those specific hardware or the intrinsics that you have to take into account with those specific hardware architectures.
Oh, that's fantastic. You mentioned this optimization where you can take any pre-existing model. You can use your own models, of course, but you can also use pre-existing models that have been developed with TensorFlow or PyTorch, and then you can run optimizations on them to make them
Mhm.
run better across all devices. How does that work?
Yeah, so two ways. First, OpenVINO has, before the inferencing is done, OpenVINO has a model optimizer, which allows all of the fusion of all of those different operations, and that allows your network to run faster in a lot of those devices. And then there are hardware-specific optimizations too, that are built in, especially in the some of the next generation platforms that Intel is building and providing, including one of the most recent ones is the third generation Xeon scalable processor.
Hmm.
That specific processor can run bfloat 16 data type. Specifically, that's really good for performance and improving your the performance of your models and how fast they can run in those platforms. So you now have kind of this compounding effect of being able to speed up performance from a software perspective and as well as intrinsically from a hardware perspective.
Amazing. So we have a bunch of different categories that we're talking about in the contest itself: education and economic growth, environmental sciences and sustainability, we've got industrial and manufacturing, health and well-being, and safety and security in public places. And these are all ways that it's quite clear that AI and OpenVINO specifically could help with developing more advanced systems that work better for us. But I'm curious, for you particularly, what do you see as an area of the most promise for this? How are you really excited for AI to help with these?
I'm super excited about environmental sciences,
Oh yeah,
and I have a personal passion about the environment and being able to use technologies like deep learning in some of those major problems in the world too. And the idea behind being able to empower developers with tools like OpenVINO is that our developers, the developers that are going to be looking at the Hackster contest today, they're going to be the domain experts of that specific use case, whether it's because they're passionate about it or they've personally experienced a problem that has to do with that. And
right.
we want to kind of abstract them from having to think about all the complications of what is FPGA or all of the banner, the low-level programming that you need to do for each of those. And some of the my favorite examples of how OpenVINO has been used in the market today is something that is close to my heritage. I'm originally from the Philippines,
Mm.
and we had a customer, a developer that had used OpenVINO in coral reef protection. And they have it at the edge. So it's using Neural Compute Stick 2 and with no cloud connectivity. So they're doing all the processing with a Raspberry Pi and a Neural Compute Stick 2.
Oh
And
yeah.
they put it, yeah, it's really, really cute. They put it in this buoy, so it goes much farther than what typical divers would be able to go to. And the problem that they were dealing with before with human interception was they had divers kind of going into the ocean and taking pictures, manually taking pictures of
Right.
the coral reefs and tracking the behavior of the fauna and looking at if there's a fish there or not. But what was happening was all the ocean life was going away. All the fish would go away when the diver would go inside the water. So
Wow.
it wasn't very accurate. And then they had kind of prototype with this POC that had a Raspberry Pi with Neural Compute Stick 2 and had the processing there without a human diver involved. And now it turns out they have a lot more accurate data and they could predict um, whether or not they have to place the camera north or south because they can then track the patterns of the fish or and kind of look at all the different historical trends that they're getting. So I think that's super cool.
That's amazing. I love it. And that really speaks to multiple aspects of this. A, that it's so small. With the
Mm-hmm.
model optimization, you can put it on hardware that doesn't have to be super intense. I'm running it on a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus, not even the most recent Raspberry Pi with a neural compute stick
Mm.
too. And it's so small and it's so
Yeah.
easy and it can be so unobtrusive, like you're talking about,
Hmm.
like replacing whole humans in the field. They also mentioned that there's this advantage that you get in the time to market, which I imagine as a
Hmm.
founder for you, that would be of interest to you. Can you think of any ways that you would use this kind of thing
Yeah.
as a founder?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we have also done with OpenVINO is be able to open source a lot of things that we're building
Oh
ourselves.
yeah.
So we have Open Model Zoo, which is now used by a lot of our developers to essentially start from those piecemeal different types of models, whether
Right.
it's object detection plus classification, and look at all the zoo of models that we have open source and kind of just put it all in one solution that could help with their use case. So I think that really speeds up the time to market without you having to think about training your own model, getting a data set, designing your system, looking at what type of hardware works best for your system, and then deploying. That traditionally takes 9 to 12 months, and even longer if you don't have the right talent, the right resources, or the right expertise in your team to do it.
Right.
And so this type of open sourcing and being able to just put it all out there and actually develop the community is building on top of the models that we're putting out, and they're creating samples, demos, and so that it's becoming this thing that's growing, this snowballing, with us putting kind of the building blocks of image classification, object detection out there, and developers, the community kind of building off on top of that and creating solutions that are ready for production.
Amazing. And yeah, I'm looking at the Open Model Zoo page now. There's all these amazing ones for text recognition, text detection, human pose estimation, instant segmentation, semantic segmentation. Cool.
Yeah.
You've got person, vehicle, and bike detection and things like that. A lot of these are very applicable to sort of everyday
Mhm.
situations. I'm curious, what other models would you be interested in seeing people contribute to the Open Model Zoo? And can people contribute their own ones to the Open Model Zoo?
Yes, yeah. So we have actually, I'll answer a second one first. We have recently completely open source OpenVINO.
Oh,
So
wow.
now you could see how model optimizer is written, so how all the optimizations are being done on your model, and how
Right.
inference engine is written, and as well as contribute to OpenVINO. So this happened a couple of months ago, and we've recently been able to get a lot of traction from primarily a lot of AI research labs that we collaborate with. So specifically, an example is Berkeley AI Research Lab. We've seen contributions from them.
Hmm.
So the developers can definitely contribute to, whether it's enhancing OpenVINO itself as the base toolkit with a model optimizer inference engine, or contributing their own models, samples, demos to help the community. But what I would love to see is, as kind of our team is also expanding our expertise to more than vision, more than computer vision. I'd
Hmm.
love to see more audio, speech, kind of all of the new realms of development that's in AI now. And specifically, I think this is very important for industries like audio and speech recognition, because traditionally people made money out of speech recognition models or demos, and
Huh.
we'd love to kind of help the community bridge that gap. And traditionally, it's been bigger companies and deep learning experts who have made natural language processing, speech, etc., models that are beyond vision, beyond computer vision. So I'd love to see more contribution in that, and kind of shape the community, shape the industry more so towards kind of how computer vision has been, where it's open source and it's community driven, and people are contributing back and forth and helping each other out. Because I think that's still a big gap in specifically some of the non computer vision deep learning workloads.
Yeah, actually, a couple friends and I are working on developing a data set for recognizing words spoken to
Oh,
companion robots, which are these like little robots that we build that are sort of your friends, and you're
that's awesome.
ideally going to be able to teach, like, speak to them and stuff. So that's, you know, that's
Yeah, that's
totally near and
awesome.
dear to my heart. I'm like,
Yes.
yes, audio
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
also
Yes.
for both computer vision and audio, both of those are very, very relevant for industry in terms of
Hmm.
failure prediction when it comes to, like, is this,
Yes.
you know, when is this thing approaching the end of its lifetime, detecting
Hmm.
normal and abnormal behavior.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we've definitely seen some of those use cases too. We have a customer or partner called A Squared IoT, and they're using audio sensing for anomaly detection in factory machines.
Ooh,
I think they're applying it in both manufacturing facilities and engines, plane engines.
whoa.
And it's very interesting how it's just like traditionally it's been someone, a mechanic, an actual person, just like trying to hear
Oh my
if there are
gosh.
some complications in the machine, and now they have an audio sensing model that's running in factories and be able to predict and detect if there are any anomalies in the machines and be able to prevent some of those manufacturing delays or anything that is impacting their business.
Or even in the air, like I can imagine if I were a pilot, I would want that on all the time, because like having a
Yes,
failure while they're in the air is like,
right.
let's
Yes,
avoid.
yeah.
But like you
Yes,
don't have to put a
definitely. Yeah,
person in there. You can just have a machine
right.
listening to it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's so cool. Do you have any personal projects that you're developing with this?
No, I don't personally,
You're
but
probably way too busy.
yes. Yeah, but I've been personally been more focused on educating developers,
Mm.
whether it's webinars, doing webinars, or I write on Medium for towards data science,
Oh,
and
cool.
kind of just like helping developers and encouraging developers that deep learning isn't such a difficult thing that only people with PhDs can do. And that I'd love for more developers to, especially for those who are closest to real world problems and specific domains and use cases, I'd love for them to just take deep learning and not be encumbered by all of the technical difficulties of which system to use or et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. We'll put the link to that in the description to the video. So where can people find you if they want to follow more of your work and see the kind of stuff that that Intel's putting out around this?
I've been posting a lot on my LinkedIn, and I've especially webinars that are coming up. I've been passionate about building more of a video-based community learning platforms and looking
Oh,
at
fantastic.
webinars, and we're on Reddit too every month.
Ah,
We've been going on Reddit, and you can ask us anything on Reddit on the r/Intel subreddit, so you can chat with us there. Essentially anywhere. We've been trying to go to where developers are. So wherever you're most comfortable, whether it's LinkedIn, GitHub, Reddit, Stack Overflow, we're gonna be there.
that Reddit one is brilliant. I wish I thought of that. Is there anything that you would like to throw in that I haven't asked before we wrap up?
What about you? What are you most excited about? And some of the problems that you're most passionate about?
This little guy right here. This is Fenrir, my
Oh,
companion robot, and he's got
that's
this is the one
cute.
with the Raspberry Pi and the neural compute stick inside. I should try and turn on his.
Wow.
Oh, you know what? I don't think he's programmed right now to actually move around, but he's got some little touch sensors so he can tell when you touch him, and he'll like move his little head and ears and stuff. And my goal is to be able to say like, "Hey Fen, like when's my next meeting?" or like, "Hey Fen, like," or
Oh,
have him
that's
like twitch
awesome.
his ears when I need to take a break or something. So that's like
Oh, yes.
my little assistant.
Work-life balance too is gonna be. I think everyone needs that,
Oh my goodness,
especially
yeah.
as yeah. The line between work and life is blurring now, and you never know when it's 5 p.m. or end of day anymore. So we definitely all need that now.
Yeah, and even in regular times, I forget to like stand up and stretch and whatever, even
Yeah.
just like, yeah, thanks for asking. So let's take a quick look at the contest page, and that includes all these resources where people can download all the resources that we're talking about. Here's the Deep Learning Superhero Challenge. We'll put the link in the description below. You can find the contest description, all these different categories that we're talking about with education and economic growth, environmental science and sustainability, yeah, industrial manufacturing, health and well-being, safety and security in public spaces, links to download the toolkit, of course, the prizes. Down here are all the resources, so everything we've talked about. Also look up the Open Model Zoo that Zoe mentioned. And then at the top here, you can check out when the submissions are closing. Right now you have 68 days, so that's plenty of time. Just give it a download. It's free. It works on all these different platforms. Isn't it like Linux, Mac, and Windows, plus like Raspberry Pi and...
Yes, yes, Raspbian. Yep.
So good. All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time. This was really a pleasure, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.